My name is David Proud. Neelan is going to disappear, but he's doing the Q&A bit. So if you put anything in the chat, he's going to transfer it over to the Q&A. So we can kind of look at that, and we'll do a little bit of chatting and then pick up some questions and try and get through as many at the end as possible. But we'll start with Aurora talking about, so today we're talking about the whole thing of, can you wear multiple hats in filmmaking? Can you be an actor and a writer, a director, a producer, and what hats to wear and when, and what are the benefits and what are the downfalls from it? So if we first ask Aurora to introduce herself and explain her hats, and then I'll explain the hats that I've worn, and then we can get on with talking about the idea of trying to do lots of things and stay really creative.
I love that. Hi everyone, I'm Aurora. Multi-hats. So it started at uni. I came out of uni. I did editing, I did screenwriting, I did directing, and I left as an editor. I worked for many years doing commercials and music videos, and then I started my own production company called Left Eye Blind in Leeds with 2 other people, and there I was a first AD and an editor and a director and a producer. And we ran a company for a number of years. Then got signed up to a commercials and music video representation in London. And that was like, oh great, you know, Jonathan Glazer's here, Lynn Ramsey's here, we've made it, this is the big time. But it wasn't, because it was the end of the music video kind of bubble, and I wanted to do drama. So then it became pursuing drama. So that was writing and directing and rekindling my love of acting that I hadn't been in touch with since I was 18. So now I work, and the way that I would quantify it is I get paid to write, I get paid to direct, I get paid to edit, and I get paid to act. These are all the different hats that I wear, and these are all jobs I still do to this day in different forms.
And that's really interesting, because I knew about a couple of your hats, but I didn't know about the others.
Oh, there you go.
Interesting, even though I've known you for years. So my name is David Proud. I started as an actor about 14 years ago on a kids drama called Desperados for the BBC. Never, I'd done kind of drama at school, but didn't think I could be an actor, because being in a wheelchair, there's just not that many disabled actors out there, or there wasn't back then. So I started to get questions about disability representation, and I felt like a bit of a fraud saying about people's representation of disability, and I hadn't written my own stories, so kind of progressed on. I was in EastEnders for a year. It's a grotty little character called Adam, which was fun to play, but when I came out of there, I really started to think, I want to write, I want to create my own content, and I want to do stuff. Dabbled with producing, which I hate. With a passion. I don't like producing. It's too stressful, and people are never where they say they should be at the right time. Actors are the worst. You book actors and then they get a bigger job and then they let you down. So I don't like the producing, although I've kind of dabbled with it and doing a little bit more directing now. So I think if I kind of labeled myself, it would be kind of writer, actor, director, which seems like a weird thing, but that in my head is like, I'm more the writer, then the actor, and then the director. So yeah, and it came out of the fact of, so I'll explain how I got into it, and it's basically through the need to sustain a career. As an actor, I thought that, you know, you get an agent and the phone rings all the time, but that wasn't the case for me. So I'm quite ambitious, and I don't like to stay still that often. So I just needed to do stuff to keep myself creative. And I was seeing all these people do some really great stuff. I was looking at people like Noel Clarke out there, who absolutely smashes it, and he does like a few different things. So I was inspired to do more than just sit at home and watch BBC Doctors until my agent called and told me that I've got an audition somewhere. So it was a little bit out of the need to keep cash flow coming in, also to be creative. And I did think that one thing might be able to lead on to another thing and lead on to another thing, and kind of complement each other in a way. So how about you, Aurora? Did you set out going, I want to do conquer the world, or was it a slow progression?
I always wanted to conquer the world. Yeah, I always, and I don't know if it's a kind of, if you need it in this industry as a kind of naivety stroke arrogance that you're just going to make it, because the realisms surrounding, you know, stats of who does what and how well you do and how much you earn and what success is, those things will really weigh you down. So you have to go in there with a kind of a self-belief that you are going to be the person that can do what you set out to do. And then I think it's having the openness to be able to diversify within the industry. So one of the things I love that you said, which was about taking ownership of voice, it was only in my later career, after about making films for a decade, where I said, you know, I'd quite like to embrace the term of disability in my work, because I feel like there's not enough narrative in there. And if I don't start telling those stories, if I don't start creating the narrative, we're not going to see the change.
Yeah.
So that's quite interesting, is like, I would say the same thing, is I'm a storyteller first and then a director and then an actor, because story does come first. It's what's most important. And I guess as you're working as an artist, you're kind of unpacking not just the fun of being an actor or a director or what you want to do, but what have you got to say and why have you got to say it?
Yeah, I think if you start to think of yourself as a brand, I know that sounds really,
No.
really horrible to think about yourself as a brand, but what are the things you like to do, and what, you know, and the chances of somebody kind of knocking on the door and giving you that job, your dream job, are just not, they're not great. In all, you know, I can save people a lot. They're not great. You're better off to work towards it and try and carve it out as you go. And I put a stat on my Instagram in the run up to this, that 98% of all actors earn £20,000 a year or less.
Mm-hmm.
So for 2%, they're doing okay, but, you know, or hopefully doing okay, but 98% at any one time are really not having a great income come in. So, and in terms of other disciplines, it would be really interesting to know how many directors are earning above that and how many producers are earning above that, because the chances are you're going to, by being multidisciplined, you're going to struggle in more disciplines.
Yes.
And you're going to start off by sucking in all of them.
Right.
The first script you write is probably going to be terrible unless you're an absolute genius. And the first thing you direct is only going to be a step up from directing Traffic. Like, it's going to be awful, but you learn, and you kind of, and you hope that you get to a point where in each of the things you can kind of hold your own slightly. Do you feel like
Yeah,
that?
well, this is the jack of all trades, master of none argument, isn't it? About
Yeah.
multidisciplinary. And I always had that in the back of my head, which is why there are a few things like acting I just didn't allow myself to say I would do, because I was kind of told coming out of drama school, you know, film school, you're one thing, don't confuse people. There's a risk attached to people not knowing a quantifiable brand of you. Even making something in a different genre is a risk, because people then get confused as to what you're going to deliver as a writer, as a director, as an actor. People like to put you in a box where they go, we know what David does, and then they sell that. Or we know what Aurora writes, and then they sell that. So the idea that you take risk by doing different things, I think that is always in the back of your head, which is, if I tell somebody I'm also a writer as well as a director, will it be a weakness? Will somebody judge me if I tell them that I also edit? Will somebody judge me for saying I like acting? Because that comes of its own territory, doesn't it? Oh, every actor is a writer of their own work. And there's almost that kind of, if you're a famous and known writer who goes into acting, it can go one way. If you're a famous and known actor that goes into directing, it can work in a different way. So you look at people's career and say, how easy is it to diversify from one thing to another? And then use the effort
And be taken seriously. That's the thing, because
exactly,
I
validate.
sat in a room where everyone introduced themselves, and everybody was like, I'm a writer, director, something. I'm a director, something. I'm, you know, I do this, this, and this, and this. And I kind of, you feel like, are you being taken seriously for, just because you say that you're something, can you actually, you know, a friend of mine says, what are the chances that the genius is in the same body? Can you be a genius director and a genius writer? Because we all know, you know, people out there that are brilliant at one thing, not quite as great at the other thing, but so I've always thought I have to really start again, whatever I'm going into. So like with the writing, I was starting at square one, even though I'd been on set, even though I kind of had an ear for kind of dialogue, I was starting from scratch. And the same with directing, starting from zero. And that kind of helped to not put pressure on me to actually be as good at the writing and the directing as I was at the acting, even though I kind of slightly mediocre acting career. But and it helped to not make me think that I had to smash it the minute I started, and that I could grow it. Like I'd grown, because I grew the acting from, from nothing, and it's hard. But you do pressurize yourself, don't you? To
taking the pressure off yourself with multi roles is really difficult. I remember when I started writing, I thought the reason I've stepped away from it, and for out of my 8 short films, 6 of them were written by other people, and I had always gone, I have a kind of hallowed relationship with the writer. I think it's the hardest job. I think it's the one where you need the most skill and the most time and most attention. So it was up here for me. And the idea that I would suddenly start writing halfway through my career when I've got all these other things, all these other hats that I'm doing, it felt to me like an impossibility. Well, I won't be any good. It will take 10 years. I'll have to write 3 feature films before anything's any good. And there's a whole lot of back catalogue that comes with me holding that role up so high, because I know how important it is.
yeah.
And then you have to get into the effort mindset where you go, well, the only good writer is a writer, so you need to write.
Yeah, you need to be constantly doing it. Acting is a muscle that if you keep doing it, you get better. And it's hard to pick up, when you have auditions once every like 3 months, it can be really hard to stay sharp. And with the writing, you need to be writing all the time. And directing, the more you're on set and having those people throw questions at you, wardrobe, different things, and you kind of, I don't know, but that kind of, it's building up that experience. And it can be daunting to try and take on too much. And I think I've been quite lucky that for me, it was a natural progression from one thing to another to another. And it just, the timing felt right. And I've never really pushed to do the director thing. And it's something I've kind of resisted a little bit, but on short films, kind of, oh, thank you. On the shorts, you kind of feel like you can try and you can experiment and you can, but it's hard because you don't want to drop a ball with any of them. And I guess it's kind of good to talk about the reasons why it's good to be multidisciplined. Is that, especially in times like this, times of coronavirus, and even before this, if you have different strands of income, one, you can afford to fall out of love with one of them and go, do you know what, I'm just not enjoying doing that particular thing at the moment, so I'm just not going to do it. And 2, if the work dries up, if you're not actually getting the work, then it's great. You've got other things. So like we've both been talking before this webinar about the fact that development hasn't really stopped throughout this pandemic, which for a lot of people that are kind of doing multiple things, actually having the time where all the other stuff pauses can be more productive. So that it does have a benefit of, what's great is I've known Aurora for absolutely years, and we're both still here, and we pop up at different events, and it's like, oh, you're right, have a cup of tea, and but there are people that in my 14 years that aren't here. They've gone off and done other stuff, and they've fallen out of love with that one thing they were doing, and they're off. So as storytellers, it's quite good to, the industry will try and limit you as much as it can, like you said, Aurora, and put you in pigeonholes, So I don't think you should try not to limit yourself, but allow yourself the time to experiment. And so in yours, because there's times where things go quiet, but what's the worst thing about it for you? Because when you have a problem, if you're trying to juggle so many things, if it's going swimmingly, it's great.
It's just never quiet, even if it's just the projects inside my own head that I've finally got. If I'm not in development on something that I've been paid to do or as a progressive project, then there's something else behind there that if you've got any space or you've just got any breathing room, you'll get inspired and something else will come in and want your attention. So the problem is not so much the space for things. I guess it's getting paid to do all the things that you want to do. And I think this is a bigger thing of multidisciplinary as well, which is burnout and focus. So one is, if you can do a lot of things, you're not saying no a lot. And like, you have to start getting a real intuitive understanding of what a job's going to take, how long it really is, and how much it's going to cost. Because it's not just being creative, but it's also, if you're going to sustain your career, what jobs are going to give you finance that's valuable for a short period of burst of work, and which things are going to take 9 months for 1 month's pay packet. So I might get a writing job, which is a step into a new direction, and it will give me a really good credit, but it's paying really, really poorly, but I don't have a lot of writing credit. So I'm going to take that hit financially so that I can take the validation up with the writing career. And I did a really useful thing a few years ago, which was I went through 2 years worth of bank statements and all my income. And I put into brackets every single job I did. And then I tallied up from that type of job how much I was earning, and then divided it by the hours. So I could find out which of the jobs, I know this is a good tip, guys,
Yeah,
which
it's
of the
really
jobs
good.
I'm doing is earning me the most per hour, and looking at the ones that I'm pretty much doing for free. So I'm aware when I'm making a choice, when I say yes to that project, what that costs me. So that meant having to shift. I was doing, when I first got to London, a lot of editing. So I was working for Saatchi & Saatchi, CHI and Partners, all these great, commercial companies. Because of my condition, sitting and editing for hours is actually really painful. So I had to weigh up the cost of the physical health versus the fact it was my best paying job. And I had to limit the amount of time I was doing that work. And it's the same for writing. It's like my physical health versus low paying versus, what it does for my career. So these are the juggling areas, I think, of this kind of multidisciplinary job. You have to be in charge of yourself like a business.
Yeah, and it's hard because when you start out in anything, you have to do the heavy lifting. So when
Yeah.
you're the actor, you're going to be paid very little,
Yeah.
but you've got to just not really be a problem, turn up, do the job, do it really well. And as a junior writer, you've got to probably do a little bit more than the
Yeah.
other people on the job, and, as a director, you've really got to put the hours in to make it look. So it's hard because
Yeah.
when you're first starting off in all of those, but I feel like I'm just getting to that point where I can pick my wins in terms of, I know where my energy and my strengths are. And I had to turn a job down this week that almost killed me because it was such a lovely project, but the time commitment for that project would mean that I then can't work on something else
Yeah.
that I know would be, something that I really want to do. But the financial thing is such a big thing because I think we talk about backgrounds as well, and I'm from a very working class background, and my grandfather worked on farms all his life. My dad's worked manual labour all his life, and I love this poem by Seamus Heaney called Digging, and I absolutely love it because I do dig with my pen. If I'm not at my computer writing, then I'm not earning, or if I'm not on film set. So there's that work ethic to just every hour of every day, but then how do you not burn out? How do you work across all things but spread yourself wisely and give each one a justification? Because there is a fear that you could just suck being half-assed at everything.
But I think this comes back to the same thing of looking at the different jobs financially, but looking at things in terms of what you emotionally have to give. And I think boundaries are really important. What is the boundary? I mean, I would self-confess workaholic. I mean, I don't see, I have the same value system being a northerner, which is, a good day's work for a hard day's pay. Kind of you work. That's how you get where if anything came easy to me, I would question it as suspicious because it's kind of a northern thing. But you do need to start putting in boundaries between where does writing and directing fall in terms of you, if you want to write and direct your own projects. The great thing about having an agent is that they will write you separate contracts for different elements. And until that point of time, if you're starting out in the first 10 years of your career, you can be doing multiple roles, stepping over boundaries, doing exhausting work where you're, you're doing all the roles for different people at the same time. And it might take you a while to realize that actually you would be more productive if you said no to a lot of periphery and you just focused on one thing. But I think that takes time and confidence to be able to say, no, you're employing me to do this. This is all I'm doing now, and I can't do it well if I'm doing these other things, and being comfortable turning down other projects. So, satisfaction, value, success that comes from this particular writing project may mean that I'm a little cash poor for this month, but it won't progress if I'm still developing something else, or I'm having conversations about an acting job, or you really have to be able to get your mindset that you can't do everything all the time at once. You're gonna have to start saying no.
Also, it kind of leads on to the fact of stay in your lane as well, because when you've got a good overview of like how everything, a few different departments works, I didn't want to be that annoying person who does one job and then tries to tell somebody that, I don't know, if I go on to submit as a writer, I'm a little bit more, as an actor, I'm a little bit more respectful of the writing, because I know how, so it's making sure that you're aware of the role that you've actually been paid for on this job. And even though you bring that experience, there's like a little bit of a balance between that and kind of going, yes, and where you're going wrong with the writing of this is, because that can really, or, the director, you go, oh, I just wouldn't, is it a wide and two, can't you get some kind of movement?
Would the action be better than the action on this?
Yeah, and it can be really hard at times.
Yeah.
But like, if you're on somebody's film set, it's their vision.
Mm-hmm.
And you can help if you're asked for your help, and, and with the writing, you could probably very gently suggest little things that are good for your character and stuff, but there's a line to not cross where you're treading on toes, because I think that can be a danger, that once you've got that overall vision of different bits, and I'm quite a geek, I just love it, I love filmmaking, I love stories, and if I can help somebody, that instinct to just kind of jump in, but I've had to try and...
I'm with you. I think acting is the one where that's worse for me, which is, can you turn off, your right brain on a film set where you're now in the part where you're looking at story beats, arcs, you're thinking about setup, coverage, you walk onto a set, you understand everybody's job role, you've got an idea of lenses and camera. How do you get from that right brain to the left, where you're in a free, safe, and playful space where none of that is your responsibility? I think when I look at people like Michaela Cole or Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who are these showrunners, writer, director, producers, who are doing all these multiple hyphenate roles, I think because their stories are kind of almost autobiographical lived experience on most of these projects, I can kind of see how they're able to do that, because they're kind of switching into an element of self that's not so far removed. But if you're doing a project which is like a crazy science fiction project, or you're in a very different role, getting onto that space and giving yourself permission for it not to be your responsibility, that's a muscle that I'm still working on. And I definitely catch myself mentally being that arsehole of asking the question, is this the right shot? And I think, you're doing a disservice to everyone when that happens, because now you're not an actor. Now you're not in the right headspace to do a good performance at all.
So do you think there's certain disciplines that work well together? Let's go through some.
Yeah. Because
actor director on the same set, that's a hard one, because you're kind of leaning on your first AD to be behind the monitor and to... So are you truly directing if you're also the leading person in it?
Well, that's a good question, because some of the times with these films, somebody storyboarded and decided what they're doing ahead of time.
Yeah.
And they've
if you had those conversations ahead of time and done all the prep and everything, but how much of a percentage of that like you say, can you be in the moment and also outside of it, knowing that actually when you get to the edit, you need that other shot?
Have you ever directed yourself?
No.
Me neither.
No, and I think that that main reason I don't think it's in me. I honestly don't think it's in me to be able to. I don't think I'm that talented. I think you're that talented for having seen your directing and your acting, but I don't think I can multitask to that level.
Yeah.
To know that.
I would cheat. I'd have to bring in someone for performance, and that was a discussion I had, which is to work with an acting coach, have them on set, and just have them look at performance, and have set up all shots ahead of time. But then you're not really able to react to the magic, and you're kind of hiring a cinematographer who may be doing handheld and following motion and kind of making decisions, and maybe a first AD who also directs, who's giving suggestions.
Can it be done on a low budget? Because on bigger budgets where you can have extra people in to help you, fine. But you know, on a micro budget feature, could you really be in it? And
it might just be our own personal hang-ups we have around how important directing is.
it's an interesting. As the people watching, do you think you can direct and be leading actor in something? It'd be really interesting to know what people think. So writer director, that seems like more of a Ollie Poulter says yes, he thinks you can. So
Clint Eastwood, yes. Yeah, I was thinking of Clint Eastwood when we were talking about this. But then I kind of feel like he has 50 years of on-set experience in another way. I kind of feel like he would swim anywhere he went.
Apparently he doesn't say action. I don't know how true this is, but somebody once told me that an actor was waiting for the action, and he just said, Clint Eastwood just leaned in and said, "Did you feel ready? Because if you feel ready, just go." It's brilliant. I really, really want that to be true. So, writer director, that seems like slightly easier.
Yeah.
Thing to understand.
I think people want that as well, don't they? At the moment, that seems to be something, because at the moment the way that everything's moving with television, IP is king. So directors are actually a lot less useful than writers. So directors are diversifying into writing in order to get content made and to have a chance of directing. They should come up with their own ideas. I don't know, that sounds a little jaded, but I definitely think that's happening, which is directors are either becoming co-writers or teaming up or writers themselves, because the competitiveness of that market out there, it's no longer you're just a director going out and pitching for jobs. There's not as many of those jobs around. Now it's, what are you bringing to the table in terms of a voice, a tone? What is it you have to say? Brand is strong, I would say, in terms of those kind of jobs.
And it's interesting, the TV film divide, because in TV the writer is everything, and in film the director is everything. So it's kind of weird. Those two areas have slightly different focus. But what about producer? Because producer is, I always think it's a really thankless task. And having done some before, I instantly went grey. I didn't like it. I'm a worrier. I'm naturally born kind of. So it just didn't sit well with me. I worried from the start to finish, and I had spreadsheets, and it was, for me, it was so far removed from the creative. But maybe it's just because I was a slightly not the right type of producer. But is there any roles where you think producer and would be a natural fit?
The thing is, I see a lot of people who are writers and directors on other projects will produce on their friends' projects. So I think I was watching something last night like Hotel Artemis, and I was looking, okay, that guy directed this, but then he wrote these films. And actually that's interesting, because the guy that produced A Star Is Born was the writer on this. And I thought that's quite interesting, isn't it? Producing's really hard. It's super hard. And there's different types of producing. You've got your line producing, you've got raising finance, you've got development, where you're there, you're part of the creative team. I think if you are a producer who loves script and content and story, and then you're raising finance and you're maybe working with a co-producer. I mean, at the Oscars, it's the producer that goes on stage and takes the award for best film. Let's not forget, they make the film. You know, it's all as directors floating around with our egos in the kind of marketing strategy, but no, you know, we're not the helm, they are. I actually think if you enjoy a tick list, if you enjoy like a Rubik's Cube and solving it and getting to the end, then that's the best job, because it does feel like it's the thankless one. A lot of people don't necessarily want to get up and walk down red carpets and be known. They want to create, there's an alchemy in another way. I think editing and directing go well together. I've met a lot of editor directors. I've met a lot of first ADs that go on to become directors too. I've met a lot of first ADs that work in production, because there's an idea of management of people, and there's an idea of management of numbers and locations. So that's like pre and onset. I'm happy to hear from anyone else. I don't know many diversified sound departments apart from doing onset sound and post sound in that regard.
Interesting. There's certain things you don't really hear about, like somebody who does directing but also does makeup, or somebody who, you know, they're slightly rarer, aren't there? There seems to be these multidisciplinary things that are quite common, and then other ones. But there are people out there. Oh, here we go. I'm just gonna have a little look at what I'm trying to get the chat thing up.
Script supervisor directors, yes.
Yes, good. As script supervisors, and I know a lot of script editors that obviously are already they're writing their own stuff, or they've come from some other discipline. So there are occasions you hear of people that have come into the industry from some other way, and then kind of migrate to something else. But there seems to be that core of disciplines that are kind of the common ones.
The
OPs often become directors. And I think it's because you work up. You know, if you've come in as a runner and you've worked up through the kind of that grade, you're never going to lose that experience and that knowledge. And I think that kind of evolution up, actually, you should consider that a cross, because you don't lose. I could not act again at all. I'm not going to lose that experience of doing that and what that gave me. So as much as we kind of say about career progression going up, we should also think about it horizontally as well, in terms of, I think that looking at writing made me a slightly better actor, because I used to paraphrase everyone's words, and you're thinking somebody spent ages doing that, and I'm coming along as a complete idiot, just putting it in my own words, thinking, oh, that sounds better. No, you know, unless, you know,
David, there was subtext.
So and so I think that one thing can lead to another, and it can really help bring it together. But so I guess we've avoided talking about coronavirus so far, but we should probably talk about, because the situation is quite bad at the moment. So how can people who want to branch into something else, in light of what's going on, are there certain disciplines which are completely under the cosh that aren't going to be easy to break into now? Or is this a golden opportunity for you to diversify and go, you know, I've been a director all my life, but actually I can probably do producing, and if that pays the bills, if that keeps me in the game until next year, post, you know, however long this is going to go on for, should we all just be a bit braver and go one industry?
I think it's two things. One is we're in a situation of uncertainty and change, and because it's also risky, why not take a gamble and do something? Get in touch with what it is that got you into the industry, what it is that you feel most connected to, and what is it you've always wanted to do. Now, I've gone back to teaching some short courses at the moment over the summer. The amount of people coming in doing 16mm film courses going, always wanted to do film, I feel like now's my time. Because there's nothing stopping them from getting in touch with what it is they've always wanted. People leaving engineering jobs at 45 and saying, quite fancy being a screenwriter. I was like, great, let's do that. This is a good time to figure out what it is that you want, because you're going to be running just as hard and just as fast as you were before this. You might as well do it in the thing that you really should be doing.
it's also, we live in a post-Trump era as well. Like when Trump can go, I want to be president and hit it. I mean, I should be going, hey NASA, I'd really like to be an astronaut in a wheelchair. You know, that honestly, I think that, but you've got to be able to follow it up. One
Yeah.
thing we're learning from the Trump thing, you've got to be able to follow it up. You know, and you've got to. But should we all just be a little bit less I've been quite apologetic, going, yeah, I'm an actor, you know, and I kind of do a little bit of writing, and you know, I'm feeling a little bit less apologetic about it, or just going, you know, it's just me trying to be creative and doing the things I love. And I tried producing and didn't really like it, so kind of learned that lesson, moved on.
Yeah.
You know, and should we all just be a little bit more unapologetic and try? And
Yeah, and I think the other side of that is being a bit gentler with ourselves. It comes back to that thing about burnout too. What this kind of COVID situation, I think, has done is accelerate a lot of the things that would happen in people's careers naturally. So when I first started working at Emmerdale in Leeds, I noticed quite a few people who were doing the on-set jobs of camera or gaffer would look to change and get into production roles or script writing because they had family commitments and they didn't want to be on set. They wanted a different style or work pace. Now, what's happened the last 6 months is people have gone, God, you know, I was pretty exhausted all the time and I didn't see my family. And the film industry can ask that of you in huge ways. So there are roles and jobs where if you think, do you know what, I would like to spend 3 days in an office and 2 days working from home, which of the roles are going to give you that flexibility?
yeah,
I mean, what in production can you do where you don't actually have to be on set all the time? And is there support in that way? So I think there are other things that the COVID situation has done in terms of us getting in touch with, not just trying to like smash it, like, let's go, let's get in there, but go, what is sustainable for my health, my emotions, my career?
and that changes over the years, because like as an actor, young actor, going and staying in hotels, doing jobs, being on set for 12 hours, you know, um sitting there eating canteen food, great. But for me, you know, as a married man with a family, writing's better. You know, I can shut this laptop down at the end of this and go be with my family. So that does evolve, that idea that you know, you can have um a career that grows with you,
Mm-hmm.
and your needs and wants will change over the years. But the earlier you start seeding those little kind of things, I think the
Yeah.
better. It's quite hard 20 years in to go, you know, it's not impossible, but the earlier you start kind of putting the feelers out there. And if you know, with the directing, I was offered the first directing job because it was a 1 day job.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, it's 1 day, one location, two actors. Not even I'm capable of like ballsing that up too much. And that was literally the reason. I was like, and it was a film that I'd actually written. So I
Yeah.
was like, so if I do balls it up, it's my own fault. Like, and that's on me. But I've only messed up my own short film. So I think, you know, have that. If opportunities present themselves to you, and
Mm-hmm.
you fancy it and you have the capacity and it's financially viable, and you don't feel like you're being kind of, you're having to kind of work too much for what you actually get out of it, then
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think don't limit yourself at all. And it's fine to fail. It is absolutely perfectly fine to fail. Everyone does.
Yeah.
You know, unless you're Bradley Cooper, who was just, I mean, talk about Star is Born.
Well,
Absolutely.
he must have failed a whole lot that we didn't see.
Yeah, he must have done quite a few projects before there that never saw the light of day. I've done a couple of projects that will never see the light of day. No one will ever know about them unless I'm on some show and they find them and kind of play them out at me, just to kind of embarrass me. But you cut your teeth with everything, and so to allow yourself the room to do that. So we should probably move on to some questions.
Dear question.
We have the first one. Do you want to read it out?
From Audrey, there are lots of initiatives like the TV mindset that are trying to change the way freelancers work. Do you believe the work conditions will improve post-COVID?
Mm.
Well, do you know what? The kind of the terms of underlying health conditions have been bandied around a lot in the last 6 months to do with
Vulnerable.
COVID.
Who is not vulnerable? I know there are extremely vulnerable people, you know, coming from a disabled background, but everybody is vulnerable going through this.
Yeah.
Like my parents who are
Yeah.
absolutely fine. It's scary when your parents are phoning you and they're scared.
Yeah.
You know, that scared me. Like they're the people you phone up and they go, no, it's all right. You know, it, everybody's just struggling a little bit. And
I think it will change film though, because I mean, I'm speaking from personal experience. So my condition's hidden, an invisible condition. I don't need to disclose unless I think I can't manage my case or I think there's an insurance reason. So for a long time, I was just thinking, gosh, I probably won't be as strong and as capable as most filmmakers out there, but I'll just get on and do it. If we're in a post-COVID time where actually underlying health conditions are something that's taken into consideration and there's no stigma or shame around like having the ability to talk about it, because firstly, you're not putting pressure on production and they can be supportive. My hope is that post-COVID, people with underlying health conditions will feel more accepted into a film set because things will have changed and that we'll have things in place for every different type of accessible need, whether or not that's a mental health, whether or not that's accessibility, whether or not that's different breaks, or if we're working shorter hours, if we're not putting as many people in the same space. I kind of hope that would be the positive.
I believe that as well. I think that we had an industry where there was loads of immovable barriers that have just been completely destroyed now because no one ever thought that the industry would completely grind to a halt. You know, now what seemed like impossible things to ask before are slightly more. So I thought before all this that the key to my career was physically attending loads of things and being out there, but actually this has made me realize that I've had the greatest period of health ever, and I've had the greatest period of productivity by just being at home and writing. And you know, so for me, it's reset, and I'll be a little bit more confident in saying to people, "Can we remote meet more?" So I'll come and meet you in person once, and then can we do like every other meeting remote because it's better for my health. So, and I do think that there has to be a greater focus on mental health within the industry for freelancers. It's not great, and there's not that opportunity to speak out when you hear things that are slightly bad. You know, I had auditioned for something where they were casting quite a few people in wheelchairs, and there were steps up to the audition room, and I didn't say anything, and then I got the part. If I'd have kind of gone, look, this is a little bit out of order, you've got steps up here, you know. So, but I want to work in an industry where you can say, guys, come on, like, what are you doing? Like, so it's really. So I think that we do need to, but I think it's as a collective we can actually just make sure that we're pressurizing organizations to have their finger on the pulse of working conditions, because it's applicable for everybody. I think the amount of freelancers that have been out of work during this period that, you know, their families are suffering, you know, they're likely to lose a house. There's so many different pressures. Everybody just needs we all just need a little bit of TLC, I think. And I think that when we go back to making stuff, we should all just be a little bit more tolerant of, you know, this guy who's maybe had 5 months where he thought he was going to lose his house, you know, and just being a little bit kinder to each other. And I think we're such a creative, amazing industry in the UK, but we used to be so just get it done, get it done, get it done. And we've had a moment of reflection, so it would be nice if we can kind of move forward a little bit. That would be nice. So we've got another question from Daniel Harris. What should a writer prioritize if they want to create quality dialogue? Ooh. My instinct of dialogue is, if you want to really hone your skills on quality dialogue, is comedy. Because comedy is a lot of comedy is punchline comedy. So like every other line has to be funny. It has to be really, and it has to sing. So if you really want to hone your skills on dialogue, but it largely depends what you want to write and what you want to be known for, or if you want to try lots of things. Because again, going back to what you were saying, Aurora, you're not just the roles, it's the genre as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I applied for funding for something and it was a horror, and because the director had only done comedy, they said, you know, we'd love to fund it, but they've got no experience of horror.
Yeah.
So all right, you'd like to write drama. Okay. Dialogue's one of these things as an actor, you kind of, I was slightly better at the dialogue than I was at the structure because I'd heard things. So the only thing I'd say about is write your drama and then actually read it out, get people to read it out. Because a lot of my earlier stuff, we had table reads, and it doesn't have to be actors, get family friends to do it. Because the minute people try and read something, you'll know if there's a problem because they'll struggle to actually read it. Apart from my mum, bless her, who puts the wrong intonation on every line. But you know, get some people and just read it. And not only that, I've discovered Word actually has a read out loud button. Did you know that?
That's amazing.
Yeah, if you go into review on Word and you press speak, it will actually read it. And after it gets a certain way down, it changes the voice. So I only discovered this because I was proofreading something the other day and I was so tired, and I'd read this document so many times, and I pressed speak and it was brilliant. I spotted so many different mistakes because it was reading it out to me. So yeah, I think with your drama, write your drama, read it aloud, and also with dialogue, you've got to attack it with a machete. You've got to cut it. You know, look for repetitions, look for things that you've written. You know, if you could say it in 5 words, say it in 5 words. You know, not every speech needs to be like Shakespearean eloquent, like, because you lose pace. So you want it to be like, and sometimes Steve McQueen actually went through his parts and cut out like every other line because he said, I'll play it, I won't say it. So he could say, he could show in one look what you would write in a line of dialogue. So try and be really, there's a brilliant writer and director out there called Ricky Beadle Blair. And he said, a diamond isn't anything until it's cut, which is a great phrase. So just don't be afraid to cut. You can always rewrite more.
Yeah.
So there's another one.
I think that question is the same question. One thing I quickly say about writing there, which is make sure you've got real active wants that are conflicting in your conversation. If people are just having a nice chat about a cup of tea, then it doesn't need to happen. Everything that happens in a film script is only happening to progress or to challenge that main person's journey. And I'd also say, never say what you want as a character unless that's a very specific term for that individual does say what they want quite bluntly. No one ever really asks for what they want. No one's eloquent enough in their head to actually put into words what they are going for. They'll probably say the opposite, or they'll agree with somebody, and that will all be in the subtext.
Yeah.
So what you could do is write a scene saying what you want to happen, and then rewrite the scene where it doesn't happen, but those characters are struggling to try and get themselves heard, or to even reach upon an idea where they know what they want, because that's more interesting to watch.
Keen example, me going shopping with my wife, I want burgers, she wants something vegetarian, so I can't outwardly say, should we have burgers, because she'll go no, but I'm trying to kind of guide the conversation that way, and she's trying to guide the conversation that way, and that's kind of how life goes, isn't it? You know, you get that point where then it does kind of the conflict comes. So we've got a couple more in the chat bits, and that is who should you share your idea with outside your trusted circle? If your story has legs, how can you get it exposure without fear of someone stealing it?
Oh,
This is a very old one. I'm actually and painful for most people that have had an idea stolen, which I'm sure you have, Aurora, or you know of somebody. It's
I also think, right, okay, so this is going to sound a little naive perhaps, but it is so hard to make a film. It is so, so hard to get a film made. It's kind of like a miracle parting of the sea, kind of to get a film off the ground. If somebody is able to take your idea, to write it, to develop it, to finance it, and to make it into a product, then wow, that's like a double miracle. The idea that your idea could be taken and made into something else. I kind of look at it from a point of view now of, it's my idea, I better get on with it. If someone else has a similar idea, they have the same journey that I have to go on to get that onto screen. It's not an easy thing to take an idea and make a film. Making a film is so hard. That's how I think about it.
No, and having had one of my ideas kind of half stolen, it's horrible.
Yeah.
But the chances are is that however unique you think your story is, it's probably not. There's somebody out there that's on the same track.
Yeah.
Might be slightly off, but they're going to be in a similar territory.
Yeah.
And it is really first past post, sadly. Once you write an idea down, you don't have to pay for any service or anything like that to copyright it. It's literally not worth its weight in anything. Once you have it, the easiest way you can copyright it is write it on Word document, email it back to yourself, and it will be in your email thing, date stamped. But you're going to have to share it with people that might make it. So be very selective, I think, in who you send it to. But with those people, don't be too precious on it as well, because no one's going to fund something where you're emailing the production company going, please don't steal this. My idea. So there's a balance between, but also don't sit in bars and talk about your ideas to other creatives who don't need to know about it. Because they're the people that are more likely to go, oh, that's really good. Not the people you've emailed because you want them to finance it or to be a production company for it. They're less likely to steal it. It's likely to be your mate next to you, and you're going, oh, I've just spoke to this person and they might fund my film about this, and this. And they go, oh, that's a really good idea. And then you tell them, oh, yeah, no, they didn't do it. And then they get it away somewhere. So there's a bit of a balance, but don't be too precious that you put off funders or project partners, but also don't be broadcasting it on Facebook.
Look, I guess the question now, David, is who does read your scripts? Because my script readers are other writer-directors working in the same genres as me, script editors that I employ, producers I'm in development with, and then one or two trusted people who work in a different industry, such as they'll work in play, theatre, or they'll work in literature, and they'll read it from a different angle and give me feedback. But I don't like to send my work out to more than 3 people, really, because I get too many notes.
Yeah. Really and truly, the people sending you notes should be paying you to change those notes. If not, it's because whoever you get a project in with, they're going to want to have some kind of stamp on it. So you're going to get notes from whoever's paying, like whether you've done it as a spec script that they then buy, they're going to give you notes that, and they're going to want you to change, and it can be something simple like, oh, can we change that character from male to female, or, so those are the people that, you can trust and they're part of your circle. The horrible thing is to get it to anywhere, you need to work with production companies. And if you're cold calling production companies to then take it to financiers or to broadcasters, you're running that risk then that they say no to you, and then 2 months later they develop a project that's very similar, and then you're in a very grey legal area where you'd have to actually take them to court to prove that it was yours. But I would say 99% of people in the UK, play nicely, and a production company isn't likely to do that to you, but a fellow creative who's fighting for survival definitely will.
Yeah, I think lower down the rung, you're more likely to find that kind of behaviour, and they'd also have the protection of an agent send your work out rather than you.
Not an agent, you've got that backup to go, especially if it's gone to production company, because they'll just go, hello, my client sent that to you. Like, you can't have that. But it's a bit kind of hard to weigh that up. I just want to say hi to Josh. And yes, I will get in touch to say hello. I think you've emailed me before. I'm so sorry I haven't emailed you back. So I will do. So any other final questions? We've got 5 minutes. If there's anything burning that you want to ask either me or Aurora, and I highly recommend you checking out Aurora's work. Her short films, Struck, which is absolutely beautiful. Really lovely film. Where is Struck available? Because you won't plug yourself, so where is it available?
Short of the week.
Short of the week? Where's that? On BFI?
No, it's shortoftheweek.com. They do a short every week. Just put in Struck, and it was on their women's selection.
It's all in one take, wasn't it?
Yeah.
This film is literally all in one take. Brilliant. What an amazing thing to do, short film. So as a short film idea, have a very simple idea and execute it brilliantly. That's all you need to do. Like, it sounds so simple, but you did that, and it's, so what's the feedback been since kind of doing that one?
Do you know, I think it's done a lot for the actors who are involved in it, because I mean, that's a 14-minute take where it's all on them and that they take that journey. It's interesting with all the different short films. I really don't know what came back from what in my career. I made a crazy sci-fi film, and I don't know if that's given me an opportunity, or if a beautiful 2-person scene and a one shot has given me an opportunity, because it's when things come your way, they don't come with the tag of where it came from. You've got no automated tracking like you do on Twitter to find out.
And that ties in brilliantly, because what we've been talking about, when that phone rings, if you're multidisciplined, you have no idea what led them to your door. It could be something you directed, it could be something you wrote, it could be, you know, an acting thing you did like 10 years ago. And that's the glory of it, is that you're creating, like you said before, this brand of you as a storyteller that people get to kind of know. So one last question. How important is representation when you first start writing? Should you concentrate on writing a few good spec scripts before approaching people to represent to you? 100%. They're going to want a spec script. When I emailed my agent, it was a load of stuff saying, I'm doing this, I've got that, you can read this, you can watch that here. Would you like to join my brand of crazy? And that's lit. And she said yes.
I had a very similar experience when I got my agent, which was I had been writing very meek and very self-deprecating. I've done this, I've kind of done that, I'd love a coffee. And I thought, I'm going to be really American. Award-winning genre female director wants to meet. That was the title. And then in there, it was all about, I've won this award, I've been doing this, these great things are happening, this is how I see my career going, would you like to be part of the journey? And I was like, oh, it's too much, it's way too much. And I got responses from 5 agencies.
Well, mine was just like, help, I'm doing all of this stuff and I've got a contract that needs negotiating and I haven't got the first clue how to do that. And it was a quick, lovely meet, and been with her ever since. So yeah, make sure your spec is brilliant. It doesn't have to, ideally about 30 minutes. If you're doing a comedy, do a half an hour spec. If you're doing a drama, do 60 minutes. Make it absolutely shine. Make it something that, you know, really represents you. Understand that it will never get made. It will never get made. You're going to put all this time and effort into something that will never get made. But my spec script is 4 years old now, and it's still being read by people who have just said, oh, I've just read this script and I love it. So a good spec script will last you at least a couple of years. And if you can make it a spec script, if you want to write crime drama, I'm just going to put it out there. Crime drama is a huge TV genre. So if you want to do crime drama, that is a brilliant spec script to write, because a lot of things that are commissioned are crime dramas or things to do with law and stuff.
I'll give you one quick tip, which is the same for everyone looking for agents, whether it's acting or directing. I'm probably going to cut out. But imagine that all your agent does is they fan, and you have to be like an ember or a flame. So you've got to come into that room with heat. So you've won an award, you've got a script, you've done something, I've got a contract, and all they do is fan your flames. If you walk in and you're saying, I want you to get me jobs, I want you to put me out there, you're like a wet piece of wood. They can't do anything. So
Yeah.
you've got to go in on fire.
Yeah, you have to give them something to sell.
Yeah.
And if they feel like they can sell you, that's fine. But like I say, if you're going in there with zero, going, I've got these really great ideas, it's not going to work. And that's for everything. So if you're a filmmaker, make film, small, low budget, one camera, just, do whatever you can to carve that little kind of voice out. I think, one last question from Audrey. Which production companies are you working with to shoot shorts? Oh, that's a good question.
Well, here's a good thing to look at. Look at who the BFI Vision awardees were in the last 10 years. They were all given money by the BFI to do seed funding for early development, and it's regional. So look at who they were in the last 5 years and the second round. And then I'd go on to Film London or Creative England's websites, have a look through all the shorts that are made in the last 4 years, look at the production companies, they are making shorts.
And the same with BFI Network, which is slightly different, but the Vision, they can do slate funding up to features, and then Network, you can do shorts. So if you've got a good idea, the good thing about Network is that they will put you in touch with the production company that they think is a good match. So if you go to one with Pulsar, sci-fi like Aurora did, they'll know companies that have got a natural affinity with sci-fi. They'll know the ones doing comedy. They'll know the ones. So the best place is to, ask the BFI Network people who's good in your area and try and kind of link to them. But best of luck to absolutely everyone. Thank you very much for Aurora for joining us today, and also for the BFI Network for hosting this. Hopefully some of our kind of waffly chat, we do this all the time in coffee shops. So if you see us in London just having a coffee, this is basically the conversation we would normally have. It's just we've recorded it for today. So yeah, best of luck post-COVID. It will all be okay. For sustainability, and keep yourself going, and try and just kind of carve out your voice in whichever way you can during really uncertain times. Aurora, do you want to say it?
Yeah, no, I've absolutely loved it. It's been a really easy, lovely chat. I think I just want to reiterate what David is saying. This is a really good time to just center in on what it is. What's your bliss? What do you have to say? How do you have to say it? And just follow that from now on. What's your bliss?
That's going to be, and we're both on Twitter and Instagram, I think. So
connect. We'd love to.
Any post questions, just hit us up on there.
Brilliant.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
Bye. See you later, guys. Bye.